This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's VOCM Open Line host Paddy Daly.
Well, all right, and good morning to you. Thank you very much for tuning into the program. It's Monday, July the 21st. This is Open Line. I'm your host, Paddy Daly. David Williams. He's produced the program. We are looking forward to speaking with you on the topic of your choosing. So if you're in the St. John's metro region, the number to dial to get in the queue and on the air is 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 8626. So for Jays fans, the fun continues. 3-game sweep over the San Francisco Giants this past weekend at the Rogers Center. That's 10 straight at home. Ties a franchise record set back in 1985. But here come the New York Yankees for 3, so big one. And over the weekend for golf fans, British Open in the books. American Scotty Scheffler, incredible player. He wins the Open. Corey Connors, Canadian, got a top 10 out of it. The conversation regarding Scheffler is getting into Tiger Woods territory. It really, truly is. If you look at Tiger from 2002 to 2005 and Scheffler from 2022 to 2025, eerily similar stats. And here's a good one. I think Dave Williams sent me this. It took Tiger Woods 1,197 days from his first major win to win his fourth major. Yesterday represented 1,197 days since Scotty Scheffler first won a major to win his fourth major. So pretty amazing stuff. Sticking with golf, this time Canadians. There's a 15-year-old teenager from Calgary named Aphrodite Deng. Became the first Canadian winner of the U.S. girls' junior history. I mean, it's an incredible championship, and it comes with some significant big prizes. She gets to play in the U.S. Women's Open next year at Riviera, Los Angeles, and in the U.S. Women's Amateur this year and next. 15 years old, a winner down south. It's her third major victory of the summer. Aphrodite Deng, Calgary. How about that? Congratulations to 3 regiment players who this past weekend were participating in the Team Canada Under-17 Development Camp. So, of course, we had 3 picks in the first 8. Ben Vitch, Quinn Norman, both from this province, they were at the camp. And then the other fellas from Nova Scotia, Fenwick McLean, all took part in the camp. That's the beauty of the juniors, right? You'll get to see some players who might qualify for Under-17 Worlds, players that might play in the Christmas World Junior Championship, and then, of course, stars of the future into the bigs. Let's keep going. So we keep our eye on the wildfires, of which there are 8 burning here in the province. We know the folks in Musgrave Harbour have been evacuated. So right off the bat, it's just one more friendly reminder that we all have to be pretty careful with what we're doing out there, whether it be your cigarette butt or your mug-up fire, which is a provincial fire ban in place, ATVs, all the rest of it. And certainly a big one is, thank you very much to the hard-working, dedicated firefighters, both on the ground and in the air, doing the fire suppression services, and to the folks at the Red Cross who are trying to help the evacuated folks from Musgrave Harbour. I think they're in Gander. So you know the deal. All right. People get sick of this one, and so do I. But there's more ramifications to the whole Diamond Group in the Stephenville Airport, simply with lofty promises and promises broken, and court cases and all the rest of it. It also jeopardizes the Marine Institute's firefighting program. So they no longer have faith in the Stephenville Airport operations. And of course, with the power gets turned off and everything included. So, again, it's not just about Carl Diamond, it's about the reality on the ground. Like, that's a pretty important program that the Marine Institute uses the Stephenville Airport for some training. Things like air ambulance, medevac. So I get the conversation and the eye rolling associated with what was hundreds of millions of dollars and thousands of jobs and futuristic drones and all the rest of it. That's obviously in the rearview mirror. But the real impact on the ground is still there, and it is a problem. The question that I've been asking everyone involved is, what can anybody actually do about this? At the municipal level in Stephenville, at the provincial government level, at the federal government level, because, of course, air travel is a federally regulated industry. So, again, you might be sick of hearing about it. I'm sick of talking about it. But the real-life impacts continue. So it'd be nice to know if someone's got an idea about what can actually be done out there. All right, stick with the West Coast. Remember back when then the PCs were in power and they promised to build a new hospital out in Corner Brook, and it took years and years and years of design and redesign and arguments about whether or not radiation therapy services would be provided in the newly constructed hospital, and they will be. Finally, the province has announced that they've been able to recruit 2 radiation oncologists to work at the Western Memorial Regional Hospital in Corner Brook. That's obviously very good news, but just, they're going to roll out the radiation services in what they refer to as 3 different phases. It's like everything else in this province in the world of healthcare. We can buy the equipment, we can set up the clinics, but we seem to be having a pretty hard time coming up with the staff, whether it be for MRI machines and, yes, for these radiation oncologists. So excellent news for the folks in the region, because having to travel to St. John's for all your cancer care is a massive undertaking, to say the very least. On top of the worry and anxiety that goes with this diagnosis and the impact on your family, your finances and otherwise. So this is really good, but even things like the new ambulatory hub at the Costco building on Stavanger Drive, excellent idea. And we can get into the lease versus purchase, which was at one point available. But it's all these staffing issues. How much further ahead are we? I'm not entirely sure, but if you want to talk about it. And look, there's still plenty of good that happens in the healthcare system. For some reason, I get in trouble when I mention that. But once you get in, the professionalism of the staff, by and large, is top quality. But 2 radiation oncologists have been secured or have been recruited to work out in Cornerbrook. Good news. Let's shuffle around a little bit here. This story here kind of came out of nowhere, and I think it's probably a step in the right direction, I'll call it. So a 19-year-old St. John's man, not named, I'm not sure why, a St. John's man, 19 years of age, has been charged with manslaughter in connection with an overdose death of a 14-year-old a few months ago. We've had this conversation in the past about whether they are providing these types of illicit drugs, presenting them as Xanax, but they might be something far more dangerous, is we know what's happening. We hear the stories all the time. We get the reports and the heads up or warnings from the RNC about the presence of some of these dangerous drugs on the street. We hear the stories coming from the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner about the number of people who are overdosing and dying as a result. So this charge is an interesting development. If the police know exactly who sold these dangerous drugs that led to an overdose death to one individual or another, does it not make sense that that constitutes a criminal charge of manslaughter? Whether it be the courts and the government's catching up with these dangerous types of drugs, from fentanyl all the way down through some of these dangerous benzos and everything in between. So this 19-year-old has been charged. How many overdose deaths do we know that the person bought that drug from one specific person, and yet no charges get laid? And it happens all the time, right across the country. So it's interesting that this came out of somehow nowhere for me. I was a little surprised to see the headline, but I'm also encouraged by the headline that maybe the justice system, understanding what is ravaging our communities with these extremely dangerous, synthetic, toxic, illicit, dangerous drugs. So if you want to take that on from any angle, you know me, happy to take it on. And on that front, so I don't know how long we've been told this, but there's going to be a new prison built to replace Her Majesty's Penitentiary up on East White Hills. A couple of concerns here. So look, number one, inevitably there was going to be a new prison built. Whether or not you think it's a good idea or a bad idea, it was always going to happen. So after the first or second go around trying to see who was involved in building a said prison, and then the affordability target wasn't hit, and consequently we waited a number of years. Now here we are. The new facility is going to cost somewhere around $700 million. That is the very predictable outcome here, with the explosion in the cost to replace Her Majesty's, because we kind of dragged our feet. I mean, this could have been done. I mean, it's easy enough for me to look back. Hindsight is 20/20, as they say. But this could have been done decades ago. And even in the most recent going to tender, we probably could have built this 5 years ago for in and around half of what it's going to cost now. It's going to take 50 months. It'll be scheduled to be completed by the fall of 2029. Pretty massive facility. 395 beds, including inmate services for female inmates. And up and down the line, recreation and hopefully some rehabilitation, which we've done a pretty poor job of here in this province, especially at HMP, simply based on space. So, yeah, after all the years of back and forth on it, now it's going to cost more. It was always going to be built. No matter what party was in power at what moment in time, at some point, someone was going to, I was going to say pull the trigger, someone was going to ensure that that penitentiary gets replaced and a new one to be built. But $700 million, apparently. Okay, let's keep going. Oh. Not going to try to be too dismissive or whatever the right word is here regarding this story in education. 96% of high school students in the province eligible to graduate this year have met the requirements to do so. That sounds good, right? 96 is pretty close to 100. The question, I think, or the next question is, or should be, exactly what do those requirements look like? Are they as lofty as they have been in years past? Are these requirements high enough to ensure that we're absolutely fully prepared upon leaving grade 12 to do whatever it is you're doing? And post-secondary schooling, whether it be at Monitor the Marine Institute or what have you, is not necessarily the be-all and end-all, but it's a highly competitive world. We hear from the parents of university students in their first and second year talking about preparedness. You know, a child that was doing very well in school is now up against it because going to school in high school in the K-12 system is nowhere near the environment and or the access to one-on-one help and what have you that's in university. And understandably so. They're young adults and into adulthood. So it's great to tell me that 96% have hit the requirements, but I still think we should be asking out loud, certainly based on the stories we've heard, about the trend downwards since around 2003 in academic outcomes here. So if that's the case, and we're talking about violence in school, we're talking about chronic absenteeism, and there's stories out there where even parents come to me and say, my child got pushed forward to the next grade, but we're pretty worried that they're actually not prepared, but off they go. And I think an even keener focus given when we talk about graduating high school and either going to the job market or doing some additional schooling at whatever location to study whatever, from skilled trades to engineering school or in a healthcare discipline. We need to know that these requirements are where they need to be, because you can't have it both ways. We can't be performing poorly academically speaking, and at the same time, 96% of high schoolers are eligible to graduate hitting the requirements. So, feels good, but is it? It's a good conversation to be had. I'm sure you'd like to do it. All right. I get this all the time. Now, pretty remarkable story, which maybe I'll talk about in depth a little bit more tomorrow, regarding the growing presence of these active clubs, these white nationalist groups preparing for the so-called race war that's in the offing. Terrible story. But this one here, I brought this up a few times over the past few months because now we're seeing study after study, report after report, talking about misogyny creeping into the classrooms more and more. 75% of the teachers in the country are female, and they are telling very similar stories from coast to coast to coast, with the lack of respect and simply because someone is a woman as your teacher. You see it as much as I do. I'm sure you do. You know, a way to tear down, whether it be a woman and or a man, is to all of a sudden attach, an effeminate tag to them. I get it in my email. It's not really representative of much of a valued high IQ to put up with the emails that, or anyone in the public eye. Like if someone wants to try to knock me down a peg, and fair enough, bring it on. I mean, that's your right to do exactly that. But they think they're getting some sort of heads up on me, or pardon me, a leg up on me by simply calling me Patricia. So that's how it works, right? And the same thing in school. So for young men and their parents, these conversations, we cannot be afraid of them. I mean, because you know what that ends up being? That ends up being the potential for violence. We talk about the numbers and the prevalence of intimate partner violence, of which the vast majority of people on the receiving end, the victims, are women. So what do you think is going to happen? And some of the social media influencers who draw them in, and they mention specifically Andrew Tate in the story, all the while facing some very serious charges, but whether they start by talking about bodybuilding, or whether they start talking about lavish lifestyle, alongside it comes all the misogynistic content. So I don't think we should be turning a deaf ear to this one. We certainly can't afford to turn a blind eye to it, because it could absolutely manifest itself into violence. We see it. It's not me making it up. It's not me being hyperbolic. The court docket is very clear here. So more and more of that creeping into the classroom, and it poses a potential danger as far as I can tell. I don't know what you think, but we should absolutely be talking about it. All right, a few more before we get to you. This past weekend, based on the story we spoke about last week, the good investigative journalism done by, I guess it's Rob Antle over at the CBC, and apparently, behind closed doors, Cabinet decided to give themselves an increase, what they're referring to as a transitional allowance, a severance, on top of the already existing severance package. People were furious, and justifiably so. And I guess you can indeed give Premier Hogan some credit for rescinding it, but a few things. So, number one, apparently it's been in effect since the 1st of April, which begs the question, has anybody actually seen any of this additional transitional allowance paid out? If so, let's get it back. I don't think that's the case, but we'll make sure. Secondly, the way the news story reads is kind of like the Premier didn't know until he found out in the media. So, if that's not true, someone set me straight. But am I being led to believe that the cabinet ministers, all of them, who knew this had happened, and nobody told the Premier? What? So technically he was not in the cabinet ministerial room because he had stepped away to run for the leadership. So can that actually be the case, that inside the walls of the Confederation building, this happened and the Premier was in the dark? I mean, it just doesn't really pass the smell test for me. So it's good that the Premier did what he did, but that horse is out of the barn. It was a bad look. It was completely unnecessary. It was tone deaf. The way people are struggling across the board is well understood, well documented. It's really quite sad in many corners and some very sad stories out there. And at the same time, the opportunity to walk away with what people call the golden handshake, $300,000 plus of taxpayers' money, because a group of individuals behind a closed door decided that was a good idea. So good on Premier Hogan for doing it. But there's a lot of bad look still attached to that. On top of that, everywhere I went this weekend, not only was that part of the conversation, but it was also people's human nature and where their mind wanders regarding just how many Liberals are not intending to run for re-election, whenever the election is, this fall. And they're asking the same questions. Is it about John Hogan? Which I don't think it is, because many of those leaving were supporters of Hogan's in the leadership bid. Is it about the Upper Churchill Memorandum of Understanding? I don't know. Is it about the travel nurses issue? I don't know. But you know full well, even some staunch Liberal supporters, who I know are absolutely Liberal supporters and Liberal voters, when I saw some of them over the weekend, the first thing out of their mouth, which people stop me all the time to talk about politics, which is okay, but virtually every single conversation I had this weekend was about those two topics. Why so many? Why now? And the whole transitional allowance, which has thankfully gone by the wayside, but the damage is done. So if you want to opine on that front, we can absolutely do exactly that. All right, so the premiers across the country are now in cottage country in Ontario, meeting to talk about a bunch of things. There's not an official agenda that I have seen released, but you can only imagine what it is. So the Prime Minister will be joining them tomorrow. It's a 3-day summit, as they call it. So interprovincial trade relations with the rest of the world, including the United States, all of that up and down the line, all of which we need to be talking about. You have to imagine they'll have to be talking about emergency management and the wildfire season, labor mobility, public safety, trade diversification. And I would imagine, given the fact that every province in the country probably has a little something they'd like to ask from the federal government, and that's regarding Bill C-5, the whole nation-building project. I'd like to know what Premier Hogan's bringing that way. So you got to believe it's the two so-called shovel-readies. Whether or not you think they're good ideas or bad ideas, we can talk about, but it has to be some conversation about Marine Atlantic, which is different than nation-building projects, but Marine Atlantic, and I know Minister Hutton has written the Prime Minister on that front. So Marine Atlantic, the Upper Churchill, which there could be dramatic changes if indeed there's direct federal government involvement. And of course, Bay du Nord, there's a federal role to be played out there, but we'll see what comes of it. But at some point, we're probably going to get an inkling about what projects might be part of this new so-called fast tracking. You know, the reduction in number of years for final approval from 5 to 2, and what actually constitutes nation building, who's making the best pitch, who and which province has something that's so-called shovel-ready. But there's a lot on the line there, obviously. And in the world of internal trade, we've signed an MOU or two, but there's some other provinces doing vastly different or taking vastly different approaches to what is a pretty important subject and topic. You want to take it on, we can do it. How are we doing on the phone there, David? We're VOCM Open Line on the Twitter box. You can follow us there. Our email address is openline@vocm.com. When we come back, the topic is entirely up to you. Oh, someone via email wanted me to bring this up, so let's do it. The touchiest topics are, generally speaking, the most important to have, and we could have them on this show. And this one emailer I just read this email just a couple of minutes before we went live, was about immigration. There are distinct and obvious and pragmatic concerns that people talk about regarding immigration. You know it as well as I do. If it's going to be based in racism, we can all smell it. We can detect it very easily. But it's absolutely fair and fine to have questions and concerns about what the provinces talk about, bringing in somewhere around 9,000 newcomers annually. Look, and that could be from any corner of the world. But we also have to have a pragmatic conversation about the impact on the ground. Housing and healthcare are the two foremost concerns that people bring forward. There is nothing wrong with voicing your concerns on that front, because as you and I both know, when it is steeped in racism, we can tell. And that's not a pragmatic concern regarding impact on the ground, because if there was 9,000 newcomers from England or from Ireland, it would have the same impact on housing and healthcare. So if you want to have that conversation, we welcome it here. If it could be offered in a respectful manner, even better. But we're not closing the door to these conversations. In fact, we're flinging them wide open. We're on Twitter. We're taking your emails. Most importantly, we're taking your calls. So let's do that during this break. We'll talk with you right after this. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. I don't know what's going on here. 1 second. Okay. And this happens all the time, but, via email, why not talk about this? Why not talk about that? Hey, we can talk about whatever you want to talk about. The phone is the best way to do that. But the two issues that were part of those emails that I read are, one, the ferries, and two, salmon. So in the ferry world, of course, the folks of Belle Island frustrated over the course of the weekend. One of the vessels down for mechanical reasons. We all know that that's going to happen. But yes, we can talk about intra-provincial ferry travel. And the other one about Atlantic salmon is a pretty important conversation, I would suggest. We know the count is down on most of the rivers here on the island. And with the low water levels and the warm waters itself and all the controversy regarding hook and release or catch and release, the future of wild Atlantic salmon is top of mind for folks who are anglers. And I guess folks who are interested in environmental issues. So absolutely, the one email seemed to be chock full of actual information and documented statistics and what have you. So that's a conversation that we're happy to have. And if you'd like to entertain it live on the air, we can do exactly that. Oh, here we go. Let's go to line number one and say good morning to the Liberal member for Corner Brook, the Minister of Jobs, Immigration and Growth. That's Jerry Byrne. And good morning, Minister Byrne. You're on the air.
Well, thanks so much, Paddy, for having me on. I thought after all these years, so many years of calling into Open Line, that I thought I'd take a moment on the announcement of my that I won't be reoffering in this election coming. That I thought I'd call in and just kind of reflect for a moment on 30 years of life in public life in Newfoundland and Labrador. So thank you for having me.
No problem. Let's reflect back to March. So why did you think it was a good idea to vote for an additional transitional allowance or an additional severance for cabinet ministers?
So to get right to the cut to the chase, instead of talking about the 30 years of like life, it's always really in Newfoundland and Labrador, it's about the current in the moment. And so there is a principle, I guess, in human resources that severance is part of the package. Tony Wakeham will be getting a golden handshake. Eddie Joyce will be getting one. Barry Pettin will be getting one. And Jerry Byrne will be getting a golden handshake, if we want to call it that, in this. So the issue here was whether or not the incremental cabinet minister salaries would also be included, which is about a 1/3 of the total remuneration package. Cabinet salary is about 1/3. MHA salary is 2/3. So Tony Wakeham is getting a golden handshake. Barry Pettin is getting a golden handshake. Everybody's getting a golden handshake, including myself. So that was the philosophy, is that all salary in. Now, I have no idea what your contract is, because you probably have a contract of service as opposed to employment. You will probably be getting a golden handshake the day that you leave, your contract is finished with VOCM. But with that said, let me say it up front, Paddy. There's no room for this anymore. There never was any room, and I'm very, very happy to rescind this, given the clear indication that the people of Newfoundland and Labrador just simply don't accept this. That is the fundamental test here. And while I'll go a step further and say there really should be no effort or intention or disguise to put this into the hands of some third-party consultant after the next election who's unaccountable, not accountable to Parliament. He's just there. He or she is just appointed to review MHA salaries and remuneration packages. Quite frankly, what is abundantly clear in my mind that there is no room whatsoever now or any time in the future for MHA salary increases. There certainly isn't any room for MHA severance packages. And quite frankly, the only way to decide this is all political parties should put it on the table today or before the next election to announce how they would be treating MHA salaries. Because again, I just don't think there's any appetite whatsoever in the public domain for this. Putting it in the hands of some third-party consultant may seem like a distant way to approach this. It's not. You're just basically getting someone who's hand-picked, hand-appointed to decide this issue and sort of sloughing it out of this. So I think really Jim Dinn, Tony Wakeham, John Hogan, including with the MHAs, should really say the way to decide this, build it into the party platforms prior to the upcoming election, and then live with the outcome.
We already have a wage commission which could take this on as well, and whether
that's
it be
the third-party consultant that you know what, that's useless. It's so that we had a commission that came in last time that provided some advice, and it was not accepted because it was not it just wasn't palatable. So quite frankly, in my opinion, forget about that. That's a waste of time.
And plus, inside that, they were telling us that the overwhelming public support for $25,000 raise just made no sense. Now, Jim Dinn, Eddie Joyce, Barry Pettin, Tony Wakeham, they're getting what you were referring to as a golden handshake, but theirs is of the 14 carat. Yours is 24 carat. And you did it behind closed doors, and you say there's no appetite for it, but obviously back in March you thought there was because you voted for it, right?
Yeah, no, it was consistent with other policies that your remuneration, your salary, is subject to severance. God bless him. I understand that Ed Martin got $6 million, and that's what I understand. And so we put it all in one collective package, and it's been rescinded by our own hand because there just wasn't an appetite for it. So,
and nor should there be.
One third of the salary was eligibly severed, and 2/3 is still to this day eligible for severance.
Oh, okay, and regardless of Ed Martin, which I don't know how he belongs in this conversation, what's not a problem with this? It was in the contract. That's how his contract was written. Whether that's exactly. Good or bad, that's how his contract was written. Your contract was not written like that, and so that makes a distinct difference.
That's why I'm saying when we write our contract, don't allow it. There's no point whatsoever in having a third-party commission after the fact decide the contract or rewrite the contract. This needs to be an election issue going into the next campaign. Tony Wakeham, Jim Dinn, John Hogan, everybody needs to say where they stand on this issue going into the next election, and so that becomes part of the contract.
I think the most important people to listen to on this front are my listeners. The taxpayers,
that's where the
voters. It should be up to us.
Voters will decide the issue. That's it. So we are totally parallel with this. We are totally in sync.
Let's move on to your current file. So you are, I think that people are calling it, defending the plea to increase the province's allotment of spaces to 9,000 newcomers annually. And you say we're different than other parts of the country who are also dealing with issues regarding access to housing, access to healthcare. If you say we're different, what makes us different?
Well, that we are different is that there is a problem, and I won't comment on what the proper prescription is for Ontario or for British Columbia or for anywhere else. But in Canada, just over 23% of all Canadians are first-generation newcomers. And I think we're richer and more diverse because of it. But with that said, it's probably causing some strains. In Newfoundland and Labrador, Patty, and this is where I truly encourage people to look at the facts and examine them from not only a factual but a philosophical point of view. Less than 3% of all Newfoundlanders and Labradorians are newcomers. Less than 3%. I really do feel it is very, very, very dangerous to either directly or maybe implied to suggest that less than 3% of the people who are around us and our neighbors are causing the vast majority of our problems in housing and jobs and other things. In fact, when people argue that healthcare is in crisis and that we can't bring these people in, who do you think our new doctors and new nurses mostly are? A lot of them are, I should say. They're newcomers. Those are the ones that are providing our healthcare. Who do you think are some of the ones providing our early childhood education so we can get daycare spaces open? They're newcomers. And so I really would take caution with the notion that less than 3% of the population are causing the bulk of our problems. We've heard that refrain before, and it doesn't end well.
Yeah, that's not where I'm coming from, though. I
didn't think it was. I'm just giving a kind of a holistic perspective on this.
Because some of it's based in, people don't like people who don't look like them. That's part of the national conversation. We all know it to be true. But even if 9,000 newcomers came from Dublin and they were all white, blonde hair, blue-eyed Catholics, it would still have the exact same impact on housing and healthcare. So how do we actually have a measure to make sure that we're prepared? Because again, regardless of where you're from, a place to live is important. Regardless of where you're from, affordable rent is important. Regardless of where you're from, the opportunity to see primary healthcare professional is important. So at this point, we have a problem already baked in with our current population levels. How can we sustain 9,000 more annually and without having all the rest of the catch-up, including the backfill of what's already been a problem here regarding getting a new home, affording rent, getting a doctor?
Well, we can't. And that's exactly what I said. So, and I do recognize that newsrooms have the prerogative of selecting what it is that goes to air. But what I said in my statement was that Statistics Canada and the Provincial Department of Finance both indicate to me and to us that with Newfoundland and Labrador losing 2 people for every baby that's born, and it's a dark, dark statistic, I know, and I don't like to say it because it is so dark. 2 people in our province are dying for every baby that's born now. 15 years ago it was 1 to 1. 30 years ago, it was 2 people were being born for every one that was dying. 2 people today are dying for every baby that's born. And Statistics Canada says that if we don't start to grow our population at some point in time by 9,000 people per year, we are going to face perennial population decline. And so what I said was that unless we're admitting and saying out loud that we really do want to shrink our population in this province, that it's a good thing to have population decline. I'm not hearing anybody say that. I'm certainly not saying it. And business people are not saying it. Community leaders are not saying it. So those are the facts, Patty, is that at some point in time, we have to start growing our population. Because if we don't, we are going to face perennial, forever population decline. So what I said was that we've done a pretty good job so far. We could do better. We're going to do better. We're putting money into housing. We're putting money into education. We're putting money into childcare. We're putting money into healthcare. Our healthcare workers are indeed actually same as they did 40 years ago, many of them coming from newcomer stock. But we can't do that until we're ready. But the statistics of 9,000 is just simply what we're told, that at some point in time, if we don't grow to that level, we are going to face population decline.
I'm not suggesting population decline is a good thing, nor is the CFIB, nor is the reality on the ground. But for me, it's more a case of if you build it, they will come. Because no one's coming to not be able to find a home. Nobody's coming to not be able to afford the rent. Nobody's coming with not knowing that they won't be able to see a primary care healthcare provider. So it's having to be prepared. So whether the number is 1,000, 5,000, 9,000, or 19,000, unless we're prepared, we're just going to make what is already an issue, regardless if you're born here, you're from the States, you're from Ontario, you're from England, Ireland, India, Pakistan, or Afghanistan. If the numbers are already problematic regarding all those aforementioned issues, unless we take care of those first, even if it's a couple of years of population, being just stable or minor reductions, we just make problems just worse. How can that not be the case?
Well, I think we're not far apart from each other at all. We do have to take those steps. We do have to be able to have the ability to respond to it. That's why I'm arguing to the federal government, give us the choice and the ability to attract these new people, because by law right now, we are not able to do it. And I can guarantee you, Patty, I will be seeing, the province will be seeing labor shortages in certain sectors, including healthcare. We will be seeing businesses start to either reduce number of hours or close. The reality with newcomers is not the same in the sense that in order to come here to begin with, it has to be proven by the employer that they're filling a job that cannot be filled by someone from Newfoundland and Labrador. So that has to come in as an element of all of this. So they're not stealing anybody's job. The employer, in order to nominate them, has to prove that they could not otherwise fill that position.
But
when I look at all of these sorts of factors, I said, boy, you know what, a clear mind to these issues would go a long, long way, in the sense that there's a national discussion, which is not good. I fear for the country, to be honest with you, because of the national discussion about welcoming newcomers. But in our particular situation, recognizing that we have to be ready and willing and able to support ourselves and others, I think the approach the government of Newfoundland and Labrador is taking is just the right balance. We'll continue on working harder on housing, harder on healthcare, harder on education, harder on daycare, but we do need that balance.
Right, but even proving that you can't hire local, those labour market impact assessments have been proven to be fraudulent as often as not. So that is a huge problem that has led to a lot of the divisive conversation in the country about it. And it's about the policy, not about the newcomer for me. Because if I go to the grocery store and there's a brown woman in front of me and a white guy in front of her, she might be born and raised in Corner Brook. Buddy in front of her might have just gotten off the boat. So that's unfortunately how we think and talk about immigration in this country. Minister Byrne, we'll have a reflective call sometime into the future, but I'm super late for the break, but I appreciate your time, and I do promise you a reflective call sometime soon.
Oh, listen, all good, and I just want to say up front that the issue with the severance, you know what, just hear the words of the electorate, the people that matter. There's no appetite for pay increases for MHAs, and politicians and parties leaders should say it out loud, and no salary increases unless it's built in from a mandate from the people in a platform. God bless.
Because it was shameful and it shouldn't have happened, and I appreciate your time.
Indeed.
Take
Thanks.
care. Bye-bye.
Okay.
All right, let's get that break in. Oh, sorry, that was a bit quick. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. I was a little caught up there during this break, and of course I went way over time with Minister Byrne. So let's get one on before we get to another break, unfortunately. Let's go to line 3. Eliza, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
Morning to you.
Just want to talk briefly now about the pigeon issue that we have in Bonavista. Mm-hmm. But more than just the pigeon issue, I want to talk about a nonprofit organization that I'm currently with and has been for years. We have a building, and pigeons got in and did a lot of droppings and whatever. So we contacted a company, pest control company, back in 2024, probably around the last part of September. And we had a chat over the phone, and we received a quote. He said it was going to give us a great price. So I took it to the board, and they said yes. And all was well, and they came out, and they started work. And in between starting the work and up until May 16th, back and forth, they were saying that the job was too big and they couldn't do it for the original quote. Our board said, a quote is a quote. So we went back to them and told them, no, we want you to stick by your original quote and the work scope that you said you were going to do. Up until May the 16th, we still got a confirmation saying from them, yes, okay, we'll do it for the original quote. And even up until May the 30th, They said they were going to come out. It was going to take time. They couldn't give us a timeline because they were down to one technician, whatever. And now they're saying again that they are not going to do it, and they don't want to talk about the original quote. They want to talk about a new quote. And we said no. And I kept going back to them, and I said, well, you know what? If you don't go by that original quote, like you said several times to confirm to us, I'm going to go on open line, and I'm going to let the people know that what is happening. And I know that this is not only happening to us in Buena Vista. And there's a problem with that, because if a professional company gives you a quote, they should have their ducks in a row before they give you that quote. He asked for no pictures, nothing. Actually, we did send a drone picture to let them know that this is a huge building. And so anyway, I just don't understand why they would keep coming back, going to do it, not going to do it. And, I'm not going to say the name of the company, but I don't even want to be on here and say what I'm saying. But they refuse to listen to us. 1 minute they're saying yes, and the next no. And we're not happy with it. And no other company out there, if they're professional, should provide a quote to anyone if they didn't do their assessment first. I will say this. When the technician did come out to start the work, which probably he shouldn't have started if he thought the project was too big for the original quote, he said, it's not Cipa Vista's fault. And I know that. Why would it be our fault if a professional company gives you a quote? We just trust that they know what they're doing. So anyway, I wanted to say that because we're not happy with it, and if the next time I got to get on, and if I'm allowed to say the name of the company, I will.
Yeah, fair enough.
Are you still there?
Yeah, I am. I'm just listening. There's reasons why names are left out of these conversations. Not because of me, it's not because of Dave. It's because there's pretty solid legal issues tied up in this. There might be a part of the story that gets left out. Next thing you know, you might, not necessarily you, because I'm speaking with you, but people can get themselves in trouble pretty quick. It's a pretty litigious world. So if not every single thing is exactly what's gone down in the time frame described, then people get themselves in trouble. And it's happened since I've been here, where someone got themselves in trouble because they said something on air that proved to be not true or not true in full. I already said it wasn't about you. All right. So anything else, Eliza, while we have you this morning? Because I'm catching up here.
Okay. Well, just one quick word now on the train issue. We are hoping to meet again with council prior to their meeting on July 28th. And we've had a couple of meetings with not the full council. And to be truthful, it kind of turned into such a heated argument that there was no sensible discussion that we could move forward on. And we're not backing down we want to save the train for a lot of reasons. And we need discussion with council because there's a lot of misinformation going out there. Not only, I don't think people gather enough accurate information and they throw out it's going to cost $1 million. No, it's not. It's going to be $200,000 to $300,000. No, it's not. It's going to be $250,000 to $500,000. And so where's all this information coming from? Now, I found out where most of all this information has come from, and nobody, the Save the Train committee, nor the town of Buena Vista had anybody come out to look at that train to see what it would cost to fully restore it.
Right.
So you can't go throwing out dollar figures if you don't have somebody who knows what they're talking about to come out and look at that train.
Understood.
So anyway, that's all I'm going to say.
And I appreciate the time, Eliza. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. All right, let's try to catch up here. For those of you in the queue, we appreciate your patience. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 5. Ed, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
Good morning.
Ed Drover, calling here from Gander.
Welcome to the show, Ed.
Yes, thank you, sir. I haven't been on the show in a few years. I spent some time on there one time. But anyway, you mentioned the healthcare system and that this morning, and I really wanted to touch on that. We really need to go out, especially in an experience like I've had. I spent 28 days in the hospital in November and December. at home on Christmas Eve in the Health Science Complex, actually. And I have to say, like, you know, you hear all the criticism. I know I hear criticism sometimes about the healthcare system. But to be honest with you, you don't realize it until you need it and you get in there. And in my case, I ended up in Gander Hospital on the 28th of November, and had some issues. And you know, after I got checked out, it was decided that I needed to be transferred to the Health Science Centre to have further testing done. Anyway, when my turn came, which was 9 days later, of course, I couldn't understand why the long wait. I had to go in for a dye test. So when I finally got in there, it was very easy to see why the long wait. The place was black with people from all over Newfoundland and Labrador that was in serious situations like I was in. Anyway, they did the dye test and all that, and I ended up I needed open heart surgery. So I had to shift it back to Gander, spent another 7 or 8 days in Gander waiting, and again, I could understand the wait because there was no beds available. The place was black. Anyway, finally, after a serious heart attack, I ended up being airlifted to St. John's, where I had open heart surgery, triple bypass. And I have to say, from the start to the finish, the people here at Gander Hospital in the ICU, the nurses, everybody that I encountered, the cleaning staff, everybody that I encountered was not only a professional act. They work such tireless hours, it's unreal. The Health Science Complex was the same thing. It was just a steady run for nurses on 12-hour shifts, and the treatment that I got there and the professionalism is second to none. So I really have to go out and give the people that work there a big pat on the back, because I don't think we realize how much they really do until we experience it. And I'm a fellow who spent 28 years in healthcare as a volunteer on hospital boards, the Newfoundland Association, Hospital Association, all through. And like I said, I think that, you know, the biggest thing that we got to look at is there's a lot more people using our healthcare system today than there was 20 years ago. So, again, a big shout out to the people that look after us when we're in a time of need.
I'm with you, and like I mentioned off the top, we can talk about the shortcomings, and that's important, but once you get into the system itself, by and large, you're going to encounter nothing but compassionate, real professional people who are trying their level best to help you out. So that's my experience, and I'm glad to hear it was yours, Ed. So how are you doing these days?
I'm doing great, back working. I haven't got sense enough to retire fully. I'm back doing some work, and this has been. We moved to Gander 4 years ago from a town on a place called Robertstown. We retired here, sort of thing, or semi-retired, and we had this experience twice, because then 2 years ago my wife had the same experience. Ended up in Gander Hospital, went through a bout of cancer. Again, the professional treatment that we got is second to none. Second to none, from the doctors to the nurses to everybody there.
I'm glad that was your experience, and you're absolutely not alone, Ed, and I'm glad to hear you're doing so well. Thank you for the call this morning.
Thank you, Paddy. All the best.
All the very best to you. Take care. All right, there you go. That's a good one. Let's see. Those of you in the queue, stay right there. Appreciate your patience. We're talking air ambulance. Marshall wants to respond to Jerry Byrne, Minister Byrne, and we're talking about the temporary foreign worker program, whatever you want to talk about. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's begin this segment on line number 2. Dave, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
Morning to you.
I'll say a good morning. It's not a great morning. I just had to listen to you go through whatever length of time you took with Jerry Byrne, standing on that soapbox, and I'm after hearing about him 33 years of service to the country and the province, and you would think in those 33 years that he would have figured something out, especially as being the MHA of one of our hospital towns here on the West Coast. Another one being Scott Reed, who's leaving now. It won't be very long, and he'll be out of here. He's the other MHA for the other hospital on the West Coast. And every one of us in the West Coast suffers because of the inactivity and the incompetence that's being showed by these people when it comes to the handling of air ambulance, which is our very last and only chance that we have at timely, healthy, good, proper, responsible health care in this province. And what they've allowed to happen to it is absolutely disgusting. I'm going to give you a scenario in a minute, but I'm going to also fire something else out there. The mayor of Corner Brook, the mayor of Stephenville, councils that are involved in the delivery of health care because the hospitals are in your town, surrounding towns and mayors. It's time that every one of you got off of your bloody arses and realized the state that we're in here with everything in terms of healthcare. I just heard Jerry Byrne talking about how he wants to bring another 9,000 people in here with nowhere to live and all these types of problems that go ahead. Well, we ain't doing nothing. And if he's concentrating on bringing people in, he should be concentrating a little bit more on trying to save the people that are here, because I can assure you, people are dying because of what is going on with the mishandling of not only air ambulance, but our spending of our money in healthcare, because it ain't like we don't spend enough. Air ambulance has been screwed over since they started with their talks a couple of years ago about, first of all, integrating air and ground ambulance. There's no need to integrate air and ground ambulance. There was never a decision made in the back of an ambulance that decided that, okay, we're going to go to an airport now and there's going to be an air ambulance involved. Those decisions get made in hospitals. And if you call for a ground ambulance, you get one. If you need an air ambulance, you're supposed to get one. And those decisions are made by doctors and professionals in hospitals, but the administration of that is supposed to be carried out by the people who are mishandling everything in this bloody healthcare system. Right now in Stephenville Hospital, there are 3 people awaiting air transport that desperately need it. A couple of them are heart instances. They're lying there. I know one in particular, 3 days. There's some of them that are there right now, 6 days. In Corner Brook, I've heard of up to 10 and 11 days before you get that air transport to get to St. John's for proper cardiac care, which gives you the best of outcome. Well, that is not happening. It hasn't happened in so long now, and I've heard all of the politicians standing up and tapping themselves on the chest for, or patting themselves on the back for the great job that they're doing, and they're doing shag all except trying to pad their pockets, which we just saw with this bloody debacle regarding severance and all the stories about why, they made the right decision and they're going to downplay it. That's not what was on the go. Right now, I have a person I can assure you that needs to be in St. John's for heart care. They've been looking for air ambulance, and they say, well, they don't know. They've got to integrate ground ambulance, get her to Deer Lake and whatever. Stephenville Airport can still land air ambulance with no trouble 5 minutes from that hospital, where 3 people await just this week, just right now. I've spoken with the people that own the air ambulances. They're on the ground, ready to go at a moment's notice. Here's problem number 1. Before Avis Air can pick up anybody anywhere on the island or in Labrador, they first have to go to St. John's to pick up a flight crew to handle the people that will be transported. First of all, from the Minister Howell back, you're failing. You're failing all of Newfoundland and Labrador. These medical professionals should bloody well be located in Gander where the planes are. I've said it before. They're looking to start the service at the destination. We rely on air ambulance in this province to make it to St. John's, to make it to the big show, where the professionalism is too, where the doctors have the equipment to work with. And maybe we have to live like that. Okay, fine. But our first line of protection is that air ambulance. And what they're doing is they're bowing down to the system. The administration is saying, oh, it's tough to get air ambulance people located in Gander or anywhere else. We have to have them in St. John's. That's where they want to live. Then don't friggin' hire them. Go elsewhere. Jerry Byrne talked about all these professionals that will come from away. Well, it's also a big hurdle to trying to get these people licensed. There's supposed to be like 30,000 doctors and nurses in Canada right now. Getting them licensed and getting them into hospitals is the problem. That's a longer-term problem. But people are dying awaiting air ambulances in this province, and that is totally avoidable.
Fair enough. A quick question. Do we happen to know why the wait?
Yeah. The wait right now is waiting on a flight crew for that plane. The planes are available. There is no shortfall in the ability for transport. The problem that lies with air ambulance in this province lies with the flight crews, who are being given priority to the King Air that's being flown by PAL for the province. There's not enough of them. There should be some of them located in Gander, where the aircraft is to. Every minute counts when you have these calls for the air ambulance. It's because it's a friggin' emergency. Why can't they be in Stephenville? Like right now, they could put together a crew, a doctor and a nurse, to assist in these transports from Stephenville to St. John's. There's 3 of them that had to be done. That could be going on right now. I spoke to Carol Diamond yesterday. They can still land air ambulance in Stephenville. Don't let nobody in the system tell you that they can't. So let's say it's not a perfect situation. We're awaiting some kind of reorganization at this airport. They can land them now, 5 minutes away from our airport, from our hospital.
Okay, so I'm not so sure the go-to source of information on this front is necessarily Carl Diamond, but I will get an actual confirmation from the air ambulance service as to the activity that can or cannot take place at Stephenville Airport. But every time we talk about that, I've kind of given up on drones and all the rest of it, and I focus in on the firefighting program at the Marine Institute and the air ambulance service, and I'd like to make sure that what we're talking about is accurate, what I say is accurate anyway, so I'll do some of that follow-up. And, you know, I just had someone write me and say, who are the people that died because of mismanagement this guy talks about, meaning you? I mean, I don't know if you know anybody, nor do I think it's appropriate for us to put a name out, but to think that there haven't been people die waiting for whatever, medevac and or on a wait list for one in procedure or another, whether it be cardiac or otherwise. So, yeah, I mean, it just kind of stands to reason. Anything else, Dave, before I have to go?
Yeah, whoever this is that just asked that question, I would imagine somebody from the administration that's trying to protect the position that they're in and the incompetent seat that they're sitting in. Well, I'm going to tell you what. I can directly tell you right now somebody that's died as a result of it, but I won't go so far as to even think about accommodating you for your incompetence. Basically, if they're asking that question from within the system, whoever they are, you can find out because this data is on the go. It's a direct result of the incompetence that you're talking about. And don't try to stop hiding it. It's time that we started to look at the facts. If you're waiting 6 days, 5 days for air transport and you got a cardiac issue, unless we're willing to forget the severity of a cardiac issue, somebody is trying to pass the buck. It's time that we depoliticize the delivery of healthcare in this province. The government in power is the problem right now. The ones that are doing nothing are either direct MHAs where the hospitals are to, the minister, and nobody else. As a matter of fact, I will throw a little bit of a bouquet out there because I've been receiving quite a bit of help since we've been trying to turn this around from Tony Wakeham. He's in opposition, and he's working far harder than anybody that's in this government doing anything right now.
Okay, and we don't need necessarily doctors and nurses on every air ambulance trip, you know, because they use advanced care paramedics right around the country. And so, you know, as long as the healthcare professional has the adequate training for some of these flights, and that's good enough. Doesn't have to be a doctor or a nurse necessarily.
You are correct, sir.
Dave, I have to get going.
They are doing nothing to fill these positions, and what they're doing in most regard is to try and get this stuff all relocated and whatever in St. John's. Think about it. This air ambulance service was never, ever meant for people on the Avalon, St. John's area. You can get there twice as quick with a ground ambulance. We don't have that option. And the only thing that we got as a lifeline in a timely fashion is 100% incompetently being handled. And anybody involved in this system right now, it's been going on long enough. If they're in a position of authority, get rid of them. They should be fired.
Thanks, Dave. Off I go.
Thanks, brother.
Okay, bye-bye. All right, let's take a break. Temporary foreign workers and response to Jerry Byrne right after this. Don't go away. Welcome back. Let's go to line number 5. Good morning, Marshall. You're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy. Thank you for taking my call.
Happy to do it.
Great show again today. I feel that man's passion, Dave, the guy that just called in. I'm very passionate too, but I'm gonna try to keep this cool and calm today. So anyway, I was on the way home from grocery shopping, and I heard Jerry Byrne on I caught all of the conversation. I was lucky enough to catch it. Two things that I wanted to just bring up was the 3% of Newfoundlanders are new Canadians, and that they wanted to bring in an extra 9,000 a year. I don't think 3%, I don't know where he's getting his numbers, but I just traveled through Newfoundland last few weeks, Central and East Coast here on the Avalon, and even here I live in St. John's, and there's more than 3% new Canadians in my neighborhood and when I go out around. And so I don't know if those numbers are right, and I don't have any problem with immigration, like some of my best friends are immigrants. But the thing is, we need to do this in the right way. We are struggling here with our health care, our housing, all these social needs that we have, and I think that there's a better way. It's going to have to be a better way of doing this with just a free-for-all, everybody kind of coming in. And he talked about the health care workers. I disagree with, I know that some of the workers are coming here, but why aren't we recruiting our own? I have 2 people in our family just graduated grade 12, top marks, wanted to be in healthcare, was not approached, nothing, and now they're going and doing something else different.
But just a couple of things, Marshall. So a high school grad wanting to enter into whatever profession in healthcare, at that level, the onus is really on the family and the individual to chase a spot, whether it be as a registered nurse or the med school, right?
Yes, I do agree with that as well. I just think there should be more of a push because we're in a bad situation. I'm sure most of us know it, and I just don't think we're going about this the right way. And I think it's just going to open up a can of worms, and it's not going to end well for anybody really, because it's poorly done.
Yeah, I do think that the immigration numbers, especially on the federal level, were too many too quickly, and we simply were not prepared. A survey taken amongst newcomers were also voicing their concerns as newcomers about the ability to get a place to live and the ability to see a doctor and those types of things. So, we can indeed break this down to bite-sized morsels in a respectful fashion. I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about the national conversation. The 3% number comes from the Harris Centre. So they do an annual report. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but what we might see in certain pockets or neighborhoods or in the city is not reflective, of course, of what the population looks like around the province. So the 3% number, I've seen that before, and that comes from the Harris Centre. So they've been a very reliable source of information over the years. They seem to be very apolitical, so I appreciate the work they do. And of course, there might be very high population numbers of newcomers in certain parts of the province, certainly here in the city of St. John's. And some newcomers may indeed be healthcare professionals. Some may indeed be early childhood educators. But, splitting that hair is also not necessarily getting down to the brass tacks about just how many people do we need that we can house. Just how many people do we need that can get access to primary care? I don't think those are unfair questions. Put it this way. The doctor I saw last week is from India. Fantastic professional. Very experienced, very kind, very compassionate, very understanding. But not every newcomer is the same. And I'll just put this one out there because I think this really does poison the immigration conversation, is the vast majority of people, I hate to be overgeneralizing, but so many people, how they identify as an immigrant is by how they speak or the color of their skin. We don't factor in folks that look like us as newcomers, but they face the same issues in getting a house and getting a doctor. So
they do.
It's become a very difficult conversation.
I don't want them to fail. I don't want us to bring them in and set them up for failure.
Of course not.
Right, and this is what I'm trying to say, is like nobody's going to win, and we all recognize that you and everybody else, we're talking about who's going to actually step up and change it. It's almost like we need a Newfoundland first party, because it seems like all these other parties are just answering to, I don't know who the answer to, but look at this money they just tried to take, the severance pay. It was in the policy, it's in the paperwork. They word it that way. They hope that we're not going to catch on. They try to keep us busy on the hamster wheel of life. Keep your head down. Don't ask questions. Just work. And we do this. And I just don't think it's right. I think there's a better way. And yeah, it poisons me. And I want to share a quick story before I go about healthcare. Sure. I work with seniors, and a lady of mine that I've known for years didn't have any family, so I was helping her to go to her medical appointments. And where she was a senior, she could not get in to get any testing done on time. And anyway, her sickness developed into very aggressive cancer. She died within 4 weeks of finding out what she had, because she was a year that couldn't get in, get any testing. You're just a senior, getting passed down the line, everything else. So when she died, I went and visited her at the hospital twice a day, and it was very traumatizing. And to see someone go that was a giver to the community, a taxpayer, and she said to me before she died, she said she was disappointed in the government and the healthcare, what they're doing to us. This was some of her last words on her last day. And she even wanted the medical assistant, and they missed that up at the hospital because they're overwhelmed. They can't keep up with it. I could go on for days, but it's just not fair, and we're all suffering, Patty, all of us. And enough's enough.
I understand your concern. I appreciate your time, Marshall. Thanks for your patience and the call this morning.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, just like I always do, I'm going to get right to the break on time. Quick check-in on the Twitter box. We're VOCM Open Line. You know what to do. Email address is openline@vocm.com. Our favourites when you join us live on the programme. Just like Eugene in the queue to talk about the temporary foreign workers. And then Paul's got a call I'm looking forward to. Don't go away. Welcome back to the conversation. Let's go to line number... Welcome back to the program as well. Let's go to line number one. Good morning, Eugene. You're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy, my son. You got a busy morning.
Yep.
Paddy, I'm at Milwaukee in Lewisburg, and I've been listening to Jerry Byrne, Minister Byrne, and I've been listening to Dave Callahan there then. And I just want to make it quick, but before I do, thank you for taking my call. Thank you to David, and thank you to VOCM for all these years and all these calls I've made to your station. First of all, I want to thank David Callahan, and everything he's saying is right, correct, is true. I know because I'm behind the scenes, and I chair the Air Ambulance Medical Transport Medical Group, and I lied to by the past Premier, I lied to by Minister Hagee, that they were going to put Air Ambulance based in Gander, and with medical personnel, they never did do it. Paddy, I would say they've lied to me so much over the years, because I've been chair for, say, SOPEC. I started SOPEC in 2009. They lied to me for 12 years that they're going to do fencing and cut the brush back and seed it. They never did do that. So, and we just had a loved one killed, 18 years old. My condolences to the family. And been through that a lot since my accident. I've attended a lot of funerals. I have. So if I was to throw a party right now at the Lions Club in Lewisburg to celebrate the resignation of these politicians, the retirement, I would have to change my mind and go to the Mary Brown Center. Yeah, I would have to do that because there's that many people been lied to by these politicians, and you know what? They're happy that they're going, and they're open that there's new politicians can take over and not lie to the constituents. Do what's necessary to save people's lives, like the air ambulance, like the moose fencing, you know. I just came around Nova Scotia and New Brunswick. They take it so serious. They get over 600 kilometres done, and the list goes on. They grubs it off, seeds it. So why don't our government listen? And the head for SOPEC, Save Our People Action Committee, the government usually puts that on after May 24 because we got a lot of travelling public and tourists. That was put on last year or year before last, I'm not sure which now, in October, when the moose hunt is open, and there's not as many moose on the highway. But anyway, that goes on. But anyway, here's Jerry Byrne on there, and that's the main reason why I called. But these other two things are very big concern for me, as you know. You've been on the open line talking to me. Jerry Byrne. I got nothing against bringing in immigrants, foreign workers. I got nothing against it, and most people don't. The only thing about it is, you bring in them foreign workers, like my grandson lost his job because of a foreign worker. Had a business in Grand Falls, Windsor. That's not right. I mean, he's 18 now, and he's going to trade school in Port Bass to fall, and he's looking at a future, and he wanted to get a few dollars, of course, right? But they wheezed him out because they're a foreign worker. I got another family member that's trying to get a job now, can't because of everything is loaded with foreign workers. Now, I got a problem with that. And the other problem I got is, if I was to get a job in Scotland today, then the Scotland loves it, wouldn't I have to get my own accommodations? Wouldn't I have to pay for all that? Wouldn't I? Would they be subsidising my income? Like I understand that the taxpayers of this province are subsidising theirs?
Yes, is the short answer. Countries all over in the modern world, there's various programs that are very, very, very similar. I have a buddy of mine works in IT. He moved to Dublin, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago. They subsidise his housing because they brought him in. So the short answer to your question is yes. The labour market... What?
Excuse me. Yeah, I can see that, Paddy. Subsidising the housing. I can see that to a certain extent. Yes, you've got to have a place to live, and if they want you, they're subsidised. But aren't we subsidising their income also?
It depends. The short answer to that is not necessarily. Here's just a couple of things. So the temporary foreign worker program has been abused, and consequently it's been a political hot potato. The thing called the labour market impact assessment, the unfortunate reality is companies across the country, I don't know how many here may have done this, but they basically were buying labour market impact assessments from companies that weren't even here, didn't do the legwork, don't have the numbers, but they know how to produce one that has proven to be successful at the federal government level. That's obviously a major league problem. There are a couple of loopholes in there that makes things like your grandson's circumstance a potential problem. Starters, you have to be able to prove not just that you can't hire somebody local, but that you can hire someone full-time. So there's a lot of different, and not every industry is created equal either, right? There's different caveats for the hospitality, the agriculture sector versus other sectors of the economy. So for some employers, including some I know, you can get a temporary foreign worker approval for a bunch of reasons, but if you can hire someone who's going to be working on a full-time permanent basis versus someone who's looking for a summer job planning going back to school in September, there's an opportunity for them to get approval for a temporary foreign worker. So there's lots of different moving parts that I don't think we all fully understand that makes it a really seriously contentious issue.
Yeah, well, thank you. I understand that we're subsidising their income quite a bit. I've talked to people in that field, and so I don't think that's right because, if they come here, they get a full-time job. Well, accommodations maybe, but not subsidise their income. No, because what it is, it's enticing the businesses, like in our case, enticing the businesses to hire them and not the locals. I looked at a business in Grand Falls, Windsor the other night, and I'm not complaining about immigrants and people bringing foreign workers because we got out because we're not having many babies anymore. More people dying than babies. But there was 10 workers there, and 8 of them were foreign workers. And here's my grandson, can't get a job. I got problems with it, Paddy. I don't know what you think, but I got a problem with that.
Okay, so there's a lot to this. And again, there are different rules for different sectors of the economy. So I don't know if we're talking about fast food or, I don't know what were your grandson, pardon me?
Yes, we are. Yeah, fast food.
That's one of those areas where the ability to hire permanent full-time plays a role in the application. So, and insofar as subsidies go, look, they just changed all the rules for a temporary foreign worker program very recently. Reduced the approval from 2 years to 1 year, changed a variety of things associated with it, including labor market impact assessments and a bunch of stuff. So, the wage subsidy is also something that has a shelf life. It's not forever. So if I get an approval for an extension for a temporary foreign worker, at that point, then I'm on the hook for 100% of their wage. The government isn't paying anything. So we kind of got to get down to the brass tacks about exactly what we're talking about. Like, for instance, exemptions to work in healthcare, exemptions to work in agriculture. Those are part of what is a very complicated issue.
I understand that during the system, they're subsidized by more than 1/3. So
yeah, well, there's a federal program, Canada Summer Jobs. There's also a wage subsidy called Jobs NL. So, yeah, the money is out there. That's true.
Yeah, it's not good enough. Yes, help them with the somewhere to live because you got to have somewhere to live. Yes, I can understand that to a certain extent. But listen, we shouldn't be subsidising them workers to the degree that our local workers are not going to get work. I don't agree with that. And the government been lying to us for years, like I said in the beginning of my conversation. And the retirement is a good thing because we need these employees to go. These ministers, these MHAs to go because they got to stop lying. And like I just not repeat myself, but like David is saying, like I'm saying, like other people are saying out there, they need to retire. They really need. They've been there too long.
I appreciate the time, Eugene. Thank you.
Yes, and everyone out there drive safe because we got a lot of moose in this province.
Absolutely right. Thank you for the call.
Thank you, brother.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. All right, let's see here. Let's go to line number 3. Good morning, Paul. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How are you this morning?
Doing okay. Thank you. How about you?
Not too bad, sir. Just starting out, I'd like to wish the best to St. John's as they host the Canada Winter Games. I was a big part of the games out here, and it means a lot for your city and for the facilities and for the equipment that's left over from the game, so you'll be paying dividends for years. But anyway, we wish you the best. And what I want to talk to, back in 1980, and you might remember talking to me one time about Deer Lake taking out Cornerbrook in 4 games. I was involved with the hockey since the 1960s, and we dropped out for a couple of years in the late 70s. And we decided in 1980 to go at it hard. And we brought in Forbes Kennedy, Bruce Campbell, Steve Gallant, Lenny, what's his name, whatever. Can't think of his last name now. But they made a big impact in Corner Brook. Now, Steve Gallant was a young fellow, about 18 years old, who was a little bit of a rough guy, and he brought him in down from PEI. And he loved Corner Brook, and he still do. And he's coming on a holiday here this week. He's driving Wednesday, and he's going to be in Corner Brook for 2 or 3 days, and then he's going right across Newfoundland. His wife has never been to Newfoundland, and some of his in-laws haven't, so they're going right across. So I just want to let some of the people know that he's in Corner Brook especially. He's here. He's going to be here for 2 nights. And on Thursday night, we're going to drop down to Westgate on West Street and about 8 o'clock. And anyone wants to say hi to him. Steve comes back to Corner Brook. He's after staying in my house a number of times. Real good kid. He went on to join the police force, became chief of police. And after that, now he's mayor of the town he lives in up there. And his son is also a police officer now. So I'm sure you'll remember him, Patty. And
oh, yeah.
I'm sure Billy Breen and Sean Goodyear and Navi Lambert and Dave Sayre and all these guys will remember him. And I'm going to send him up to Billy Breen's store there to have a sandwich with him because Billy gave him a few knuckle sandwiches over the year. And Billy ended up playing with him, too, in the 1980s in Corner Brook. Remember, Billy came out and played with us. So I just wanted to let people know that he's going to be around. I'm going to phone Billy and maybe they can get together. Hayward Young out in Stephenville. I'm trying to line up a game of checkers for the 2 of them because they fought every time they saw each other. But anyway, I just wanted to just get that message out. And I thank you for your time on it. And a lot of exciting hockey back then.
Absolutely. The heyday of provincial senior hockey. Yeah, so Billy would have been playing on the 1986 Allen Cup, Corner Brook Royals.
Yeah.
Yeah, and who else got called up? So Tony Cuomo was called up to play on that team, or called in from St. John's to play on that team. I wonder who else. Let's see here.
Billy Breen and Bob O'Neill.
Bobber, yeah, okay.
Yeah, and Cal Dunville from Stephenville. And Sheldon Curry, and Daryl Ulrich from Port-au-Basque, and who else was it? There was one or two more. Gilbert Lamprey, he passed away there a little while ago, and they were all in. We all went to the mainland. Something that has remained with me. That's 86. That's 40 years ago now. But it's something to remember. But it was a fantastic team, and they gelled together fantastic. And like I say, it was a different game back there. By the way, we hear about salaries and everything, and bonuses and that. When Steve came here, we paid him $150 a week and give him a place to stay and his meals. And he asked for more, and we were going to send him home. That was in 1980 he came here. So the game has changed a lot, but the great thing about back there, all these tough guys. When I go in St. John's, I always drop into Billy's store and see him, and you see all the guys around, and some great hockey back then, exciting hockey. And Steve, he's looking forward. All he's talking about, he said, tell any of the A team that's around, I want us to have a beer with him. I don't think Steve was old enough to have a beer when he played in Gordon Brook. So he was a good guy and quite successful in life, and now mayor of the town. So
good for him.
Anyway, yeah. So we wish once again St. John's the best of luck with these games. I'm telling you, it's something that'll stick with you the rest of your life.
Yeah, and you mentioned good hockey players who were also pretty tough. Danny Cormier was on some of those teams. Who I was.
Danny was on that team.
Yeah, I was a big fan of Cormier. I think Dave Matt, who was at the time playing for Stephenville, played net for the Royals in that '86.
He played, he played a couple of years but was here. He was in the net for the Allen Cup, and he was in the year when we lost with the Thunder Bay in 7 games.
Yeah.
And he's passed on now.
Yeah,
Stan Henniger was another one we brought in to play. I think he played around in St. John's first, I believe.
He did, yeah. His first meal was at my mother's house. Dad was running the Caps at the time. And another fellow.
Real good guy.
Oh, Henniger was an excellent guy. Tough, hard as nails, too. And who's the other guy? Gussie Greco? Greco was around at the time.
Passed too,
he's passed as well. Yeah, it's good to have you on the show, Paul. I appreciate the look back.
Yeah, I remember too the Allen Cup when we were away in Ontario for the Bowden Cup, and Stan Jonathan played with the Mott's Clamatos. And remember, Stan was just out of the NHL and a big tough guy. And I remember someone saying, "Who's going to fight him?" And I think 9 fellas wanted to.
Well, I'm sure. I remember when the Caps played against Charlottetown down at the stadium in the Allen Cup playdowns, and Al McAdam was playing for Charlottetown. So, some big names. Yeah. There we go.
Big names. Yep.
Good to have you on, Paul.
Anyway, best of luck with the games, buddy.
Thanks, appreciate it very much. All righty, you're welcome. Bye-bye. And Dave Matt, when he'd play in net down the stadium, the boys, especially the bleacher creatures, right? This was the chant at Dave Matt. Mope, mope, mope. I used to get some kick out of that. Let's take a break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 2. Rhonda, you're on the air.
Hi, Patty. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How about you?
I'm not doing bad. I have a lot of problems right now, but I'm hoping you might be able to help out or put me in another direction.
Okay.
I have elderly parents. My father is 80, and my mother is 75.
Okay.
Now, this week, or last week, we had to take my mother off to the hospital, and she was admitted. And they both have home care. And I have home care too because I'm not well. And Mom's hours was cut. And it was always set up that if one or the other would go in hospital for any reason, the hours would come into play for the spouse that was home. But they have a new worker that moved home from the mainland, and she took the hours away and never even told us. So we're in a complete shambles type of thing. And we are managing, but the home care hours, the supports are not there like they should be. And I don't like seeing my parents go without their supports. Both of them are patients of the cardiac care, and my mother also has COPD, and right now she's having trouble with her kidneys. So, I need to be on top of everything when it comes to their home care and their supports. And then you can't, I made calls to the manager, social workers, and I went to Seniors Advocate and got some advice there. And apparently they're working on information now for all families and seniors who are going through the same situations. They got some recommendations coming out soon. I've left a message with client relations. The last time I talked with client relations, I had woken up from a cancer surgery. I was mistreated by a call center that the government had put in place during COVID. And I don't know what's going on. And before my mother went into the hospital, she sat on the edge of the bed and she started to cry. She said, I don't know what we're going to do. I said, why, Mom? What's wrong? And she said, well, the home care has gone up again. What's happening is the federal government is giving seniors a small increase in their pensions, and the provincial government is taking it out through their home care. So their home care is a small fortune. And, these seniors can't keep it up. Senior citizens in this province are having to avail of other resources, is either medication or food, heat or medication. The dynamics that are in the play right now because of the government and how they're treating our seniors is I don't even know how to put it into words. I'm that angry and I'm so upset because it's not fair. Years ago, I remember my grandparents were okay financially when they got their old age pension. We never had to worry about them. Now, seniors, you've got to worry about them because you don't know what's going on. Medications for different health problems cost a fortune. The government is not seeing that. They're not seeing, they do see. They're choosing to ignore in my eyes. When the federal government gives these senior citizens a little increase, why do they go in and take it from them? I don't get it. I really don't get it.
Me neither. So it sounds to me that you've exhausted most of the avenues that I would suggest. Just a quick question. Have your parents received a recent assessment by a social worker about home care needs?
Oh, yes.
When was that?
And you know what her answers is for me and my husband to move out of the house and leave them alone and let them fend for themselves type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's a similar conversation where people are told, oh, well, if you weren't married, maybe you could have some additional supports or all this stuff about, move out so that we can free up time that your parents need. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. It might be...
My father has been a rock, not only for his family, but for many families in the St. John's area. My father worked for one of the most prominent doctors this province ever had. He was his PCA worker, and I don't want to mention his name, but, his daughter was one of the judges here in the province, too, and she's retired. And, we've been involved with home care, and everyone in our family, myself, my sister, my mother, and father, have helped with everyone. And, I've been working since I'm old enough to work. I started babysitting when I was old enough to do it. And from there on until I had no other choice but to stop working. And I have several disabilities. My nervous system is destroyed because of thyroid cancer. And my husband has PTSD. And, we're doing everything we can alongside of my sister and her husband and two adult children. Well, I call them children. I'll call them children when they're in their 60s. But, to me, they'll always be the babies. But, something has got to be done. And seeing all these politicians getting ready to walk away, it's speaking volumes to me. It's like, what did you do? What did you do? And when I done my business course, one of my business courses, I worked in the I done my work terms in the financial world. And I've seen things. I can talk about it now because that was years ago. Right? Now, I won't get into what the things were, but it's the same thing. It's like we need new fresh blood leading this province.
No argument here. If I can think of anything beyond all of the places you've already gone to inquire or complain, then I will scratch my head and try to figure something else out for you. But that would have been all of the avenues that
there's another couple of things I want to mention.
Well, if you do, then
Rhonda, the young one.
Rhonda, if you do want to say something else, I'll have to put you on hold because I have to go to the news, but I'll have you back on, okay?
Yes.
All right, let's do that. So let's put Rhonda on hold. Take a news break. Don't go away.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
Welcome back. Let's go back to line number 2. Rhonda, you're back on the air.
Hi, Patty. I won't take up much more of your time.
Great.
But I do want to say that the families and seniors get behind the advocates and, make some noise because our families are not being taken care of properly. And one of the men that you did have on earlier, he was talking about his 18-year-old grandson.
Mm-hmm.
We have an 18-year-old home support worker here in play, and it's one of the best things that we've done. We need to get behind our youth. We need to teach them. They need to learn because they're our future. They are the ones that are going to lead this province. They need all the help they can get, and some of the best knowledge they can get is from the seniors. They are the ones with the stories. They have been through everything. And nobody tells a story better than my father. He was a taxi driver in St. John's, and when it was quiet time, Dad would give a history lesson over the radio for the clients. And they love getting in the cars. And is Ray working? Have you got a story to tell us today about the history of St. John's? And, it doesn't matter what profession you're in. Look at these young ones. Like our girl that we get coming here, I'm so proud of her. And every accomplishment that she makes, I'm like, she's with Compassion Home Care. I'm going to say it because, I'm very proud of Compassion on what they've done. Like, they're taking these young ones and they're giving them the tools to move ahead. And whether they stay with home care or they go in another sector of the health care, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They're going to be taught properly. And working with the seniors, there's never a dull moment, right? Because there's always stories to tell. And my father is a prime example. But the government has to do their part. They really have to step up and do their part and help the seniors like they should be helped. And I wish I could take my arms and wrap around everyone that's in the same boat we're in and tell them it's going to be okay, but I can't. I want them to do what I'm doing, and that's make a little noise of their own and get behind the advocate. And, she is the one that's going to get the recommendations to the government. And, trying to get a hold to a government representative is hard to do these days.
Yes, it is. Is it ever? Susan Walsh and then Suzanne Brake before her. I think the office does extremely important work. The only concern that people, I think, rightfully have is how much clout do they actually have in final decision making? And that's not a knock on Suzanne Brake or Susan Walsh, who we've had on the show many, many times and will continue to do so. Same as the Child and Youth Advocate, same as the Citizens Representative, and hopefully there will soon be a Disabilities Advocate. It's really one thing, and like the Auditor General, to identify problems, to propose solutions. They answer the Cabinet, but we don't always get the good ideas that they have. The problems that they identify don't necessarily reflect decision making at the end of the day, and we need more of that. I'm complete support of all of these offices. We have them on all the time, as we should, and I appreciate your concern and what you and your family are trying to navigate here, Rhonda. Thank you for making time for the program this morning.
Yes, and just reiterate the part of seniors and families. Please make a little noise of your own and get behind our advocates. And when it comes time to vote, do the right thing. Get the right people in, right? And think of our young ones. Think of the future. Think of 5-10 years down the road, what these young ones are going to be able to do.
Understood. I appreciate the time. Thank you, Rhonda.
Thank you, Patty.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously something to be said for learning some life lessons from seniors. I would also suggest that working with and listening to children can also bring upon a bit more empathy, which has been lost in many corners of the community. Let's take a break. When we come back, Tony's there to talk about immigration. Don't go away. Welcome back. Let's go to line number 4. Tony, you're on the air.
Hey, Patty. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. How about you?
Great, boy, great. I wanted to talk about the immigration discussion that's been going back and forth and kind of going on for a little while.
Sure.
I own my own businesses and hire people all the time. It is very, very difficult to hire anybody these days. All right. There's a shortage of workers, qualified workers for sure, but almost any worker. I mean, we're willing to take people in and give them some basic training and stuff, as long as they kind of have a sense of that they know how to do some sort of carpentry, woodworking type of thing, right? But I tell you, I'd be damned, I cannot get enough people, right? We have projects waiting. I can't get enough people to do those. I can't build for the future because it's uncertain as to how many people we're going to have to do these projects, right? And then when I hear people kind of saying, oh, no, we have too many of these people coming in and stuff like that, it's hogwash, right? Because we don't have enough people here. And I can only imagine what it must be like in the senior care part of things. My parents passed away a couple of years ago, and they were living at Tiffany Village. And, they had wonderful care workers that were from all parts of the world, right? And it was fantastic. I mean, these people came here. They integrated the best they could. And, they did a great job. They filled these voids, right? So when I hear people kind of dissing that whole concept, I just wonder, where do these people think that the future people to do these jobs are going to come from?
I can only speak for myself. So to not have immigration, which would lead to population decline, regardless of what people think, that's bad. That is bad for us. And I'm not putting any level of blame on one age group or another, but the fact of the matter is, fewer and fewer taxpayers with the aging demographic is an unsustainable model. It doesn't matter what you think about immigration. The only questions that I try to think of and to ask is whether or not any targets also have the preparedness in place, whether it be housing or healthcare, whatever people want to talk about. But you're right. I've got plenty of business owner buddies that say, hey, man, I don't know where people think we're hiring because we are scrambling and the staff shortage is real. But help me understand this one, Tony. So at the exact same time, we're told by, for instance, Trades NL, that 70% of their 14,000 members are unemployed today, and yet you're having a hard time hiring somebody. And I think you mentioned carpentry and construction.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's in that field, and so we put out an ad almost every second week, right, for people. And the only applications that we get are people from the Philippines, from South Asia, from all sorts of different places, South America, right? And we get the odd person here and there that wants to apply, right? But it's kind of like where are all these people that Trades I know talk about?
I don't know.
I mean, they're all gone to Alberta. I don't know. Like they're not here looking for jobs, because I'll tell them, send them to me today. I'll hire them, right? Yeah, but they're not coming to knocking on my door, and I'm out searching the woods looking for them, right? So it's not like we're just sitting back and just waiting for people to come by. I mean, like we're actively recruiting all my guys that work for me now and gals. I say, if you know anybody, send them to me, right? Nothing. Crickets. Yeah.
And here's something else. And again, these are not stats that I bring forward. These are things like, for instance, the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. I think people exaggerate the kind of supports that immigrants get in the first place, whether it be wage subsidies or otherwise. But consumer spending is up, but it's only up based on population. Individual spending is down. So at the same time, while people are talking about the problems created by the numbers of newcomers, we're also creating a potential issue with the way the government has handled it. Too many, too quick. Okay, I get that. But then the reduction in international student visas, the reduction in permanent residence, the reduction in temporary foreign worker programs. We are indeed creating a whip for our own tail, coming and going. So if consumer spending on the individual basis is down, and we are talking about reducing the population, boy, we're kind of asking for trouble without realizing what the question is being asked.
Indeed. I mean, and the talks are kind of, well, we need to fix all the problems before we bring more people in. Well, like that's kind of a self-defeating process, right? I mean, it's a chicken and egg sort of thing. We need more people who are contributing to the economy for more taxation, so we have more money to produce these things and to get more housing and to get more health care, et cetera. It's all about the money, right? At the end of the day, it's all about the taxes coming in. And all these people coming in, they want to work, right? They work like savagely. And, they're contributing, they're paying their taxes, and they're adding to the economy that's here, right? It's frustrating, right? Very frustrating.
Deaths have outnumbered births in this province for years on end.
Yep.
It's so, just true.
Indeed. And just as a, the segue into that, is like, when we're talking about okay, there's no housing for people. Well, in my field, right, there's no housing because sometimes when I hear some of the city councilors get on your program there and talking about the city is open and da 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 da, right? It's kind of like, yeah. So recently I went looking at doing a project right on some land that I own and stuff. 18 to 20 months before they even kind of figure that I might have a development permit. Right? So there's your quick turnaround for housing, then another year or two to build it. So that's 4 years in an offing, right, before that housing is available.
Yeah, I mean, so there's a lot to that, whether it be the role the municipalities play, the role that the province plays, the federal government plays, incentives and hitting the affordability target and having the workers. So there's a lot to this.
And none of this is I'm not going looking for any kind of subsidy. I think this is privately funded, privately done sort of thing. It's just that this is how long it's going to take for them to go through the red tape in order, just within the city here. I don't know what other municipalities are like, but just within the city to try to get this project to a point where it's shovel ready, right? And not because of any financing or any of that kind of stuff. It's just from the city giving their check and saying, yes, go ahead. Right. I mean,
yeah.
That's too long. That's too long, right?
Absolutely.
And it's in the heart of the city. It's not like, this is kind of, okay, roads have to be built and stuff like that. I mean, it's all right there. All the infrastructure has been there for 150 years, right? But no, there's a whole, big, long process. Right?
And some of it's redundant, and I don't think we should be just willy-nilly on this stuff. But if you have investors and developers and contractors who have a reputation, they understand the system, there may indeed be a way for, I don't know if fast track is the right word, but not every developer or every contractor is created equal. If people have track records of success and hitting targets and understanding the bylaws and understanding the regulations and the inspections, maybe they get treated just a little bit differently until the newcomer creates that reputation and track record of success, so we can get things done.
Yep, I buy into that. That's for sure. But anyhow, that's just my 2 cents worth. With that, but we need immigration. We need to sadly replace the people that are not. I mean, my parents, came from families that had 14 and 15, children, right, siblings, right, and you just don't see that anymore. So, where are all the people going to come from, right, to do this sort of thing? So,
a big family today is 3 kids.
Oh, that's huge. Yeah, I mean, most are 1, right, 2, right. Yeah,
it's a complicated conversation, but it's one worth having. Tony, I appreciate your time.
Okay, thanks, Patty.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.
All right. And again, like I said off the top, and that I think, and I probably say it fairly often on the program, the trickiest conversations are the most important ones to have. It's easy to batter around politicians and all that kind of stuff, but we absolutely have to have the conversation about the tough ones. And immigration, just one more, and just to add it to the topic, we can talk about all the different programs and all the rest of it. But what's unfortunately happening here is that it's the government that creates policy. But unfortunately, there's a distinct feeling in many parts of the country, including here, is that people's frustrations are being taken out on the newcomer. They didn't come to make your life worse. I can't imagine anybody thinks like that, or the 99.9% of them. So some people have turned their anger or frustration on the person who's new to the country. When if you do have a problem with it, your problem is with the government. So we got to hopefully temper that somewhat, because that's becoming a big problem here. I mean, just think about the story, and I'll talk about it a bit more tomorrow morning, is that groups like this Nationalist 13, that should be about the government, not about the new person in your community who's not here to make your life worse or to steal your job or whatever the case may be. Let's take a break. When we come back, Shelley's in the queue to talk about a variety of things, and David wants to talk about early detection, and then we're speaking with you. Don't go away.
The Tim Powers Show. Join the conversation weekday afternoons at 4 p.m. on your VOCM.
Welcome back. Let's go to line number 1. Shelley, you're on the air.
Good day, Patty. I'm a first-time caller, very long-time listener.
Welcome to the show.
I'm a little bit nervous.
Take your time.
Thank you. Well, I couldn't agree more with your previous caller that we don't have enough people here to work, for one thing. I'm sitting on the wharf here now in beautiful Carbonear, and I'm thinking about all the stores and restaurants here, and if it weren't for immigrants coming into work, we wouldn't be able to get a McDonald's burger that was fit, I should say, or in a timely manner. We wouldn't get, your KFC, all the Tim Hortons and so on. Home care is my main reason that I'm calling. My mother recently had a little mishap and she needed some home care. We got approved for 12 hours a week. Not very much, but she was managing with that. And we were so fortunate because we found a wonderful, wonderful home support worker who loved her job, was good at her job, and wanted to work in her job. And she's a local resident, I'll give her that. So I get a call on Friday from her employer saying, sorry, your mom's going to lose her home care worker. I'm like, what? Yeah, she worked too many hours, so she got to drop your mother as a client. And I'm like, well, whose rule is that? Nothing that Company A could do to stop that. The Eastern Health is the one who pays Company A to send out his home support worker to my mother. She had, in her last couple of pay periods, I think she had worked in excess of 50 hours a week from between my mother and I think 2 other clients. and that's unacceptable. We're not allowed to do it. Now, she's willing to work, wants to work, and thoroughly enjoying her nice big paychecks. Eastern Health says, can't work any more than 40, nothing that Company A could do. So now she has to go to another company, Company B, who Eastern Health will pay up to 40 hours. She'll work for two companies and get her hours in that way. I just think it's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And I don't know. I have a meeting with the social worker tomorrow, so hopefully I'll find out more on that end, but that's just the most ridiculous thing I heard. We do have someone who wants to work, but sorry, not allowed. Another thing, the Small Point fires. I was down there on Friday. That's where my mom lives. I got the call from my sister, another fire lit, it's bad, and just hung up. Or she had told me she had called 911. I said, okay, get Mom, whatever we can get, belong to Mom at the house, get it, and just go. So I take off and go down the shore as well, and we're watching the fire. Everyone is on pins and needles. The fire was just in the road from my mother's, so the couple of immediate houses, they had to evacuate. All the rest coming out that road, we were all just sitting on pins and needles waiting for the time and watching the flames and the smoke get closer and closer. And I mean, it would have, the way the strong winds we had on Friday, the heat, it was just going to wipe out like the majority of the community and on down into Rock Cove as well. We all know the situation in Adams Cove, which is 2 communities away. That's like a couple of months now. I mean, it was near-death situations. I don't know how many homes in total were alive. And fortunately, it was only one shed last in Friday's fire. But the community is being so vigilant. They're sitting around outside, nice, beautiful hot days, and their eyes are just steady scanning the whole area. Where's the next puff of smoke going to come from? We know that, like, it's not a freak of nature. This seems to be something that's deliberately done, and I can't think of anything like more. If that's not terrorism at your finest, I don't know what else is. It's like the residents, they can't sleep. It's and I see very little or hear very little of anyone doing anything, any authority, any police presence. The police certainly were present down there on Friday, but they were out doing highway patrol, burning off the roads. Maybe there were more inside when the Department of Forestry and all those folks and they had fire departments from up as far as I'm not sure if Harbour Grace responded, but I know Carbonear, Salmon Cove, Victoria, right on down the shore, Old Perlican, Beatty Verde, they all responded. And, of course, the North Shore Fire Department, which the boys are wore out. And the heat that we had on Friday, and we were just like a couple of gardens away and watching and seeing, like, what are they going through? The neighbor that I was with, she had her son and her husband in fighting those flames and saving other people's residents when his house was on the line. I was like, do you need me to help get some stuff out of your house? What do you take? You pack a few important things, put it aboard the car, and hope for the best, like get ready to run when you get the call. But it's too close for comfort. I think this is number 8, like the 8th fire since the big, well, there was one the day before in Adams Cove, which they caught and put out fairly early. They weren't so fortunate in Adams Cove because it was unexpected and it just went so fast, so far. And it's like, the people know. They said, oh, hot, windy day. It's going to be a fire today. So what can residents do more than, be vigilant and look itself? There's not a trace, there's no sign of anybody. However, I did see a picture of a can. I don't know if it's some sort of homemade bomb that they do to light the fire, if they set so many of them around or what they're doing, but it was like a can with all tall, dry grass sticking at the top of it. I don't know if they have gas inside or what the hell it is, but it's terrorizing, Patty, and I'd like to see more police presence or someone to try to get to the bottom of it.
Fair enough. It's a terrible way to live, to be looking over your shoulder, see if there's a puff of smoke headed your way.
Yeah, it really is terrorism at its finest. So, and again, I got to go back to some of Tony's comments too about there's not enough people paying into our tax our taxation system to keep everything running. And I don't know where we fell or what happened to us as individuals that don't want to work. Is like there's help wanted signs here everywhere. If any individual here wants to work, they can. It's by choice that they are not working. Some, I'll say not by choice, some are disabled and can't. And I support anyone who is disabled and unable to work, but it's the ones that's out there that just won't turn them over. They got me killed. I've retired recently, 32 years, and every bi-weekly check, I'd have to look at it and cry to see where all my tax, half my check is going out the door, and now again they come out with the programs, but it's no good for me because I still have to pay into my dental program. I don't benefit for any of the programs that the government now comes out with. My health care, I have to pay for that as I paid for all my life. And we need more people coming in, like people from the Philippines and from Thailand and from wherever, who genuinely want to work and want to get ahead in life and have a better life. And most people aren't around here anymore, Patty. I don't know where the hell they went, but...
Yeah, there's a couple of things. So... there are some jobs that a lot of people just don't want. That's absolutely true. And in addition to that, we just got older. And so we have fewer people to take on the number of jobs. As the population grows, so do opportunities. And if you have fewer people that are able to take said opportunities, what do we think we're going to end up with? So, yeah, I understand where you're coming from. Shelley, before I get to the break, would you like to offer anything else?
No, I think you do a fabulous job, and it's a wonderful outlet for people to call in their concerns, and I certainly appreciate the time today just to vent and put a couple of those concerns that I have, Patty. But I will say it's a beautiful day to be alive here in Japan. Just thank you for getting my 15 beautiful fish. So we should be able to do it every Sunday. That's another little...
I'm planning on a dip in the pond here this afternoon. That's what's on my schedule after I take care of a few things. Shelley, appreciate the time as a first-time caller. Hopefully you do it again.
Okay, take care, Patty. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. All right, final break of the morning. David, you're next to talk about early detection. For what? We'll find out. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 6. David, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. I'm not a first-time caller, but it's been a while because I've been trying to deal with other stuff. I went to my doctor about a year and a half ago, had suspicion that I had cancer, right? So I explained to him what was going on to me. It was somewhere around my ear. I couldn't explain it exactly because I could feel it burning and rooting right inside my ear somehow or another, but I couldn't really explain because I'm not a doctor. But anyway, he felt my ear and stuff, and he said, no, I think it's your sinuses. When you get up in the morning, hold your nose and blow. He said, that'll clear out your sinuses. There's nothing wrong with you. So I went home, not satisfied, but believing my doctor. So about 10 months after that, one Saturday evening, the pain got so bad, I ran my jawbone. The tumor was growing down under my jawbone by this point, and the roots were going into my face. Okay? So I went to the emergency, and the doctor looked at me and said, I think you got trouble. I said, I knew I had trouble a year ago. And he said, yeah. I said, I got cancer. He said, I don't know. I said, yes, I got cancer. So they ordered a CT scan, 10-minute procedure that should have been done a year ago. And sure enough, I had a malignant tumor on my parotid gland, which was my saliva gland, okay, inside my ear. So anyway, this is coming up on Christmas. I couldn't get in the hospital then for surgery because the doctors were going on holidays, but cancer don't take holidays. Everybody remember that. Cancer don't take holidays. So I got in somewhere around the 23rd of January, somewhere around there, not really sure. Anyway, I had my surgery, which was a big surgery. A half-an-hour surgery turned into a 7-hour surgery. When I woke up a while after, the surgeon came in shaking his head. Dave, he said, you're in an awful state. I said, yes, I know I'm in an awful state. He said, this could have been prevented. He said, this was left too long. I said, not my fault. He said, no, yes, I read your chart. But anyway, a couple of days after that, I told the doctor I wanted to go home because I was in St. Clair. There was so much there that I wouldn't get no rest. So I came home on my own. And it's been a long, long recovery. If somebody's not feeling right, you know your own body, go and get a second opinion. I think one thing wrong in Newfoundland, if you can't get a CT scan from the government, you should be able to go to a private clinic and pay for it yourself to ease your mind. Because it's only a 10-minute procedure. It's not like it's 3, 4, 5, or 6 hours. And that could eliminate a lot of worry for a lot of people. What do you think, Paddy?
Absolutely. Here's a question, or just a comment, I suppose. I don't think there's anything keeping someone who would like to purchase a CT scanner, bring it here and set up their own private clinic. I don't think there's any restrictions, is whether or not you could actually see any cost recovery legitimately in a reasonable time frame. So look, there's private CT scanners and private MRIs and all sorts of private offerings throughout the country. You can go to Halifax and get one, I'm pretty sure. But I think someone could do it if they wanted here. It's whether or not they could actually make a go of it, I think, would be the concern. I mean, how many people would actually be, A, in need of a CT scan, and B, could afford to do it in a private setting? So I don't know. But yes, is the short answer.
But why wouldn't a doctor, if you had concerns, and you know your body the same as I do, if you had concerns, do it cost a lot for a doctor to send you for a CT scan? Because it seems like it's really, really hard to get. Like, is there some reason why you can't? You got to be dying almost to get it?
Well, I don't really know if I can answer that question. I know that there's only a few CT scanners and only a few people to operate them. So I guess that's part of the delay. Same thing with people trying to get an MRI. An CT scanner for a high-end system is probably like a couple of $1 million.
Yeah, but when I went to the emergency and there was a suspicion of cancer, I got my CT scan right away, which was almost too late because when I got my surgery, I only had a month to live because it was gone so far.
Right.
Right? And now I'm going through hell. I don't know if I'll recover or not. Really don't know because between my mind and my body, everything is fighting against me. Hey,
I'm really sorry I'm sorry to hear of your struggles, you know, with your mental well-being regarding the diagnosis and the way that it was handled by the system itself. So how are you doing, David? What's the prognosis? I probably shouldn't ask. That's a pretty personal question.
Well, I don't mind. I see the doctor there last week. He told me, as far as he can see, there's no cancer there now. But like they say, cancer is gone one day and back the next. I don't think it ever goes away. So I just live day for day, that's all, and try to stay strong and try to be as mentally stable as I can be, right? That's all you can do. But thinking back to all this could have been took away from me at an early detection is what really burns me inside, right? Because when your surgeon tells you after surgery, this could have been all avoided, and you know it could have been, it don't make you feel very good.
No, our family lived it. I know exactly where you're coming from.
Yeah, and if I could touch on one other thing before I go, thank you for letting me talk about that. As politicians are elected in federal, provincial, and municipal. They all get crooked when they're elected. Are they crooked before they're elected, or do they become crooked when they're elected? I look for someone to phone in and answer that. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a straightforward answer to that. You know, most people who are new to the political arena, I think for the vast majority of them, they get in with all the right intentions. I really do think that's the case. What becomes a problem pretty quickly for most elected officials is that they just fall prey to the hyper-partisanship. It's just all about the colour of your lapel pin all of a sudden, which breeds problems. I understand the party system and how it works and what the shortcomings are, but that's the number one problem for me is real well-intentioned, experienced, good people get involved. All of a sudden, they just fall into the machine. And the machine, as we know, is not working as it's supposed to.
But a lot of bad people, too, outside of the political arena, get into the arena because they know they have a lot of silly people around them who think they're God, and they say, if I can get elected now, you'll be taken care of. But I'm going to take care of myself first. So that's how they become elected, promising to other people around them, getting elected themselves, doing a little bit of skimming here and there, and just carrying on their way. And then they'll say, well, I'm finished with municipal now. I'll go to provincial, and then perhaps I'll go on to Ottawa because I'm a good crook. So that's how it works.
I appreciate the time, David. You take good care of yourself. I wish you the best.
Thank you.
Okay,
Bye.
pal. All the best. Bye-bye. Yeah, there was a caller in the queue who wanted to talk about an issue and apparently didn't think he would have enough time to squeeze in his thoughts. So hopefully he'll take the opportunity to give us a shout here tomorrow. Lots of interesting conversation and topics on the table here today. And, of course, that's the best part of the show. Because, for the most part, your input on these subjects is what makes the show go. It's what makes the show works. Let's check in on the Twitter box before we run out of time. We're VOCM Open Line. Follow us there. Here's one that'll get you going if you live on an island serviced by an inter-provincial ferry. Is the whole concept of cost recovery. Remember when Marine Atlantic, their cost recovery model was 65% through ticket sales, and they've done away with that. The cost recovery model for interprovincial travel. So look, there's a difference between commuting for work or for education or for healthcare versus commuting for something to do. And we know there's plenty of people that get on one ferry or another simply just to get out of Dodge, get a change of scenery, maybe to grab a bite to eat or whatever the case may be. So a suggestion from one listener is that if we increase the cost to travel on the ferry, then there would be fewer and fewer people doing it just for that day trip for the sake of. And so consequently, some of the capacity issues that we face would be alleviated. It's basically just saying, charge more. And whether or not that's a good idea or a bad idea, it certainly floated through on my social media feeds this morning. Final check on the email. We're openline@vocm.com and plenty of stuff floating in there. We're anticipating a call tomorrow from a gentleman. Let's see if I can haul this up. His name is Major Paul Perry. And we're going to talk about something called let's see if I can get this right here. It is about what they call the Rolling Barrage, an annual ride across Canada to raise awareness for PTSD. So it was originally founded by a military veteran named Scott Casey, but we'll speak with Major Paul tomorrow on that one. All right, good show today. Big thanks to all hands, and we will indeed pick up this conversation again tomorrow morning, right here on VOCM and Big Land FM's Open Line. On behalf of the producer, David Williams, I'm your host, Paddy Daly. Have yourself a safe, fun, happy day. We'll talk in the morning. Bye-bye.